With the help of good weather and modern technology, U.S. farmers are making up ground according to the USDA's latest spring planting numbers. With 28% of the corn crop in the ground, this year is no longer the slowest on record. That mark remains at 26% set in 1984. As the state, Nebraska made the third biggest increase by jumping from 14% to 43% complete. Ohio saw the largest percentage growth in the latest progress report, followed by South Dakota. Jeff Peterson from Heartland Farm Partners is our marketing analyst this week. We talked with Jeff Thursday afternoon. We're seeing a slow pace of planting across the country. Nebraska is actually making up more ground than most places are, especially Illinois and Iowa, the two big boys there. But the USDA report from last week, let's start there and let's start in corn. If you look at the numbers, 158 per acre is what they're looking at, or 158 bushels per acre is what they're looking at. Total production just over 14 billion bushels. Are those numbers a surprise to you, or do you think they could be right?
Well, I think they still could be right on the 158. The thing we have to look at is that report was as of May 1st. Now, I think if you were to come back in and readjust that yield now with our slow planting pace, then you probably would have to lower that yield. So if you're looking at it today, we'd still have to have a go with a lower yield yet.
Nobody's talking too much about beans right now just because corn has been so far delayed. But if you look at the bean numbers, they're still in the single digits as well.
I know. And I think beans is something, I know everybody talks about soybeans being a crop of August, and we do definitely need moisture in August for soybeans. But we also have to have enough nodes where there's enough blooms, and that means we need to get the plant going and get it planted. So I think we'll need to see that yield come down yet. 44.5 is the same as the outlook meeting, so I think we've got to bring that number down yet. Too early to say how much.
That buzz that we heard about a month ago, really, about delayed planting, maybe switching some acres from corn to beans, has that gotten any traction now?
It's getting some traction. It's getting talked about. Actually, there's a few meetings going on in the Eastern Corn Belt talking about preventive planting and the ins and outs of that. But I think what we're going to find is if guys have the window to plant corn, I think most areas will still try to get in their intentions that they intended on corn.
Let's get into some of the specifics. Let's start in corn and look at the ethanol margins, which really have been pretty decent for a little while now. Is that something that continues?
I think it does. We were talking about that today. Our research would show that actually we had to go back to the end of December of 2011 to find margins this good. What's surprising us, though, is that in a lot of these areas, it's getting tough to find corn and source corn. So I think that's going to have an impact down the road. I don't think the margins will be able to hold at these kind of levels.
Do you think they're having a hard time finding it because it's not there or because people are holding on to it?
I think it's both. I mean, the crop is definitely tight. One thing you don't hear a lot of discussion of, but it's very important, our stocks are not equally distributed everywhere this year. Illinois doesn't have a lot in comparison to last year, whereas Minnesota does have more than they had a year ago. And then you come back into Nebraska and we have less than a year ago. So it depends on where you're at, how easy it is to go ahead and get stocks sourced.
This is sort of been the ongoing saga, but corn exports haven't been great. Is that something that's because of price or because of demand?
Yeah, I think there's two parts of that. The demand definitely is backed off because we had to higher prices. But I also think it's because of the supply that's out there too that's drove up our price. If you look right now, USDA is shooting for us to come in somewhere around about 51% below a year ago. We're currently at 54%. There's still a chance they may need to lower that export number a little bit yet in future reports.
Let's go into beans here. We're not too far away in most parts from getting to 15 on a cash level with a positive basis. Do you think that it can go anywhere majorly over 15?
Yeah, I think we can go above that level yet. We have some very good basis levels, dollar over at the processors. Today we closed on Thursday, we closed at about 14.25 on the futures. I still think there is some room there because what it looks like, there's still enough demand yet that we have to ration in order to be able to come in at USDA's ending stock number.
Did you ever see the influx from South America that hit the market and maybe dragged it down like you thought it might, or is it something that takes time to hit?
I think that takes time to hit. The big thing there has been that a lot of the ports in Brazil have been backed up, and so they haven't had a free flow of beans coming out of there like a lot of people thought. I do think it'll be an impact. We are going to have to import beans from South America to get through. Just hasn't necessarily happened yet.
Let's move into some decision-making opportunities here. Corn, is there a chance to get it back above $7 on a nearby contract, and should you pull the trigger if that happens?
Yeah, I think the thing we have to really look at is that I think that's going to be very, very hard to go ahead and get the futures back above 7. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of the work is going to have to be done in the basis and then also in those spreads between old and new crop. You know, could you put another 20 or 30 cents on corn? I think you could, but beyond that, the work will have to be done with basis and with the carry.
Are you of a feeling that you need to be making some sales for a new crop?
Yeah, we are. You know, this year is a tough year, and the way we're looking at this is that you need to be flexible in your new crop plans. I do think you need to make sales. I think at some point in here, unless the weather stays really wet for much longer, you should consider getting up sold close to your crop insurance levels. But be ready to defend that, though, because if conditions change, then we'll need to be able to come back and still use options to still be able to get a better price.
And
later
beans
on.
are on the same on that?
It is. Beans are the same on that.
Is there some level of drought already priced into the market?
I don't think there's very much. I mean, I think there's a little bit, but I think most of the attention right now is still on the wet condition side.